good evening, all our friends and brothers and sisters around the world. Good evening to our members and partners. This is your friend and brother, Reverend Dr. Aquilus Ricks, coming to you live on our AfriAge feed, our podcast. Obviously, AfriAge is the acronym for Africans for the Restoration of Ethics in Government. We are a nonpartisan organization designed to harness the expertise of professional Africans and global partners to dialogue how our careers and how our trainings and experiences can benefit Africa. And I'm excited tonight for the discussion and the guests we have on hand tonight. Tonight we have my own friend and brother here in Minnesota, Reverend Dr. Francis O.S. Tabla, who is the pastor and founder of Ebenezer Community Church here in Minnesota. He is a father of the Liberian community here, and he has a lot of things, a lot of work he's doing, not just in America, but also in Africa and around the world. And so we are delighted and excited to have Reverend Dr. Tapla with us tonight, just to have a conversation, a dialogue on some issues that we believe is very significant to Africa and helping to improve, Africa in general. So, Reverend Dr. Tapla, I want to say a big welcome to you to AfriIsh Podcast, and we are excited to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Riggs. I'm delighted to be here and look forward to a great conversation.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, tonight our topic for discussion is addressing social challenges in Africa. Addressing social challenges in Africa. Indeed, Africa has a lot of problems. Many of us know. Just put the news on. You get to understand. You get to get a feel of what Africa is dealing with, and is not surprising to the world and to people in the diaspora. And I mean, everybody knows that Africa has a lot of issues that need to be resolved, and it breaks our heart to see in the 21st century that the African people are still struggling in certain areas that the rest of the world have already gone ahead in those areas. And so as we dialogue this evening about addressing social challenges in Africa, Reverend Dr. Tapla is going to share with us, some things that his organization is doing on the continent of Africa, and specific challenges that he's addressing that is dear to his heart. The problem is so vast and so broad that you cannot one person cannot solve everything. But nonetheless, that a particular area of concern that may be impressed on the heart of a person, he or she addresses that area, and another person deals with another area, and so gradually, different areas are being addressed to help Africa improve the quality of life for her people. So we'll be looking at addressing social challenges in Africa. Dr. Tapla, please tell us a little bit about yourself, about your organization or your ministry, and what specific challenges you are focused on addressing in Africa.
Thank you so much. So again, I'm Reverend Dr. Francis Tabla, and I'm privileged to be the pastor of the Ebenezer Community Church. Ebenezer Community Church was established in September of 2000, right here in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, with about 8 people. And for the past 25 years, the Lord has blessed us to grow from 8 to over 950 members. We have 3 branches now in Minnesota, one in Brooklyn Park, one in Bloomington, and one in St. Paul. So, addressing issues. First and foremost, our call is to spread the gospel, and we do that through church plants, crusades, revivals, here in the United States, in Ghana, in Kenya, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Then, of course, the gospel is holistic. Jesus Christ dealt with the physical need and the spiritual need. So, for us, one of the needs is education. And we do that by providing scholarships. We currently have uh, scholarship students in Kenya and Liberia. And then, of course, we do leadership training. And then one of our churches is currently building a school in Douazon. The Ebenezer Community Church of Douazon is building a school because a couple of years ago I went to visit the church and I saw all these kids in the open place playing. And the pastor told me that Dr. Tabla, you see those kids, their parents have to decide whether they go to school or whether they find them food to eat. And that really broke my heart. I mean, it broke my heart that the parents have to decide between feeding their kids and sending them to school. And so, right now, that young church is in the process of constructing a school that will give the kids the opportunity to go, so the parents don't have to make that decision as to whether to feed them or send them to school. And then, of course, we do leadership training. By the way, our vision is all of the churches we plant in Africa will have school and clinics attached to them. All right. And then the other need we are addressing has to do with supporting orphanages. All right. We sponsor, we give some support to some orphanages. And then we also sponsor some orphans. All right. In Africa and, of course, in Haiti. Then we pay attention to medical. All right. Right now, as we speak, there is a cancer center in Sudan. Uh, 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 Not Sudan, but Uganda, the Aruka Cancer Center. So we send some mission support for the patients at that cancer center in Uganda. And then we do general, mission support to Guinea, Nigeria, South Sudan, as the needs are brought to our attention and we pray about it and we feel led to engage those needs, then of course we provide some support for that. So for now, those are the ones we address, and I'll stop there for now.
That's good. It's interesting. So pretty much, I mean, so your organization, your ministry is doing a more multiple projects at once. In Africa to address different needs. You mentioned the needs of education. Choosing between working, let a child, just beg on the street or go to school. You mentioned healthcare. Cancer clinic and things like that. You also mentioned orphanages, so that there are multiple things you are addressing, on the continent that is, and for me, it is encouraging because it breaks my heart when I put the news on, and I see, images, of children, that as you rightly said, that should be in school learning, but they are in the garbages, picking up scraps, to feed on, and just you think about the orphanages. I mean, parents are dead because of diseases and things like that, unemployment at a high rate. And just knowing that it's been impressed on your heart, not just to deal with one thing, but multiple things at once. I'm curious, what caused you to gravitate to these three areas? Because I mean, again, there's so many. You know what I mean? What is it about education, healthcare, orphanages? What is it about those things that really touch your heart that you say, I got to focus on these things in Africa at this time?
Yes. So, when you are in a church like ours, where you have people from 14 different nations in the church, people have their areas of interest. But generally, I can say some of us used to be faced with some of these challenges that we are addressing. We used to be faced with them years ago. All right. Some of us were either out of school because of lack of tuition. Some of us were destitute. So we were faced with some of these challenges years ago, and God has changed things around, and so it is our responsibility to give back. All right. The second thing is it is the right thing to do. The Bible says in Galatians 16, if we have the opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto those who are of the household of faith. So when you see those needs, the best thing to do is to respond. You can't just turn away without compassion. I'm sure you have heard a song that says, "If I can help somebody,
Yeah.
then my living will not be in vain." So we are gravitated towards those needs because we, at one point or another, face those challenges, or uh, it's just needs that you just cannot turn blind eyes to.
Many people have said to me, and I mean, just in from personal experience too. Going back home, when you get there and you see the struggle, you see the challenges, it's impossible for you to just pass. It's impossible for you to just pass by. It's just literally impossible because of the gravity, of the challenges that people are going through, the children, the youth, the elderly. You can't ignore it. You know, and many people are even share the personal stories that if you take a suitcase of clothes with you, you bring an empty suitcase back home,
Yeah.
because it just, I mean, tell me a little bit about your experience with that. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, what are some things you have seen, person hands on, that just broke your heart?
So I remember we went to Liberia to do a crusade, and there was a young girl who was being sexually exploited. All right. And the need was brought to our attention. And basically, she was being exploited because she didn't have money to go to school. And whoever was, helping her to go to school sexually exploited her. And that need was brought to our attention. And I came back to the US and shared with my wife. And we decided, to give that girl scholarship. All right. So she went and attended my alma mater, of course, the Booker Washington Institute, and she got a trade. And now she is a career woman. All right. As a
Wow.
matter of fact, she teaches now, at this institution. All right. And then, oh my God, you go to Liberia and sometimes you see the kids that have been ravished by drugs. And they have these different categories of drugs now that are very terrible. I mean, they are destroying the lives of young people. All right. And then, of course, I share with you the situation with those young kids. These are beautiful young kids, promising, but they were just not going to school. All right. And there are multiplicity of needs, and your heart is broken, like you said. And for me, when I'm going to Liberia, I carry suitcases with clothes, shoes, different things, with the sole purpose of leaving them there to bless the people who, the pastors can bless or who are identified. All right, because the needs just there, and in some cases, some of the needs can just be addressed with just a little sum of money.
Yes.
You can do much more with less in Africa. All right, there was a young girl who her entire tuition for the year was about $75. And so I came and I was discussing with my daughter. I said, "Do you want to join me to sponsor this girl to go to school?" She says, "What's the amount?" And I said, "It's going to be $75 per year." And my daughter told me, "But Dad, I can handle that all by myself." You know, so yes, the needs, they are enormous. All right, like you said, we can do all, but we can help, and that's exactly what
Yes.
we are doing as a church.
Yes. And I like the comment that you made, earlier, that it's about giving back. It's about
Exactly.
giving back. Look at your experience, look at your journey, and how the Lord was good to you, and how He brought you through some things, and by His grace, gave you a little bit more, and that you can't just ignore others who are going through similar things. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Again, I would just want to just, just kudos to you and to your organization, your church, just for stepping up and addressing these needs, education, healthcare, orphanages, and things like that. Talk to us a little bit about the feedback, people you are servicing, people you are helping. What are some of the testimonies you're getting? What are some of the results and the feedback you are hearing from them?
Okay, um, so results, they are positive results. Like I just mentioned, this young girl that we sponsored to school, she's not a career woman, and she is even teaching at her alma mater. All right. Two of our pastors in Liberia are students that we sponsored. They graduated from high school. They didn't have the wherewithal to go to seminary. So we sponsor them at the Liberia Baptist Theological Seminary. We sponsor other students, but two of these students that we sponsor eventually, when it started, two churches. And those are our first two churches in Liberia, the Ebenezer Community Church of Graceland in Mount Barkley area, and the Ebenezer Community Church of Dwazon. All right. So that's results right there. We invested in their lives, and now they are being used by God to plant churches, and they are giving back to the community. People express appreciation. All right. Last year, we went to Liberia to do a fundraiser for our capital campaign here in the US. And some of the people that came to donate to that campaign, all they had to do or to say was appreciation to Ebenezer. I wanted to go to school. I couldn't go to school. Ebenezer helped me. Or this church wanted to buy the pews. They didn't have money. Ebenezer helped us. We built our church. There was no running water. Ebenezer blessed us. Appreciation and appreciation. The other thing is restoring hope to people who were destitute, restoring hope to communities. We just returned from Sierra Leone. We went to Sierra Leone last year, spent about a month in Sierra Leone, about 3 weeks rather, and we went into the second largest city in Sierra Leone called Bo. And within Bo, there is a smaller city called Betima. And we went to that community to do a crusade. And we were told that a lot of young people in that community are being ravaged by drugs.
Oh wow.
We spent 1 week there doing a crusade, and it was like hope is being restored to the community. I mean, you get there and you can sense that something has happened in this community as the consequence of this crusade. A church is being planted there at the place of God. A school will be built there, and the young people in that community will have a school right there. They don't have to go far away to go to school. So hope is being restored, and then lives are being transformed. So appreciation, restoration of hope, transformation of lives. That's exactly what we are experiencing in our outreach efforts to these countries that God has opened to us.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I got a couple of comments coming in here. One of the question is from one of the listeners says, "What is the main health challenge that you are seeing when you go? And not just in Liberia. I know you operate in Kenya. You mentioned you did some work in Haiti, Uganda, and things like that. Is there one specific health issue that you see reoccurring? As you travel to these places, or they just
Well,
multiple? I mean,
well, that's a very good question, but my area is not in it. I don't have
yeah.
expertise in the area of health, but I can say that sometimes it's just common illnesses that can be treated with a tablet, and the tablet is just not available. All right, so it's vast. All
Yeah.
right, like I said, right now, our young people they need to be redeemed, or I should say saved from drugs. So there will be a lot of need for what you may call mental health.
People.
All right, people are traumatized. All right, the trauma of the Civil War is still having an impact. So people need to experience some mental healing. So mental health is a big need there, especially in Liberia and Sierra Leone with drugs. Yeah.
Is the era of mental health, and thank you for bringing that up. I know your organization is vast and you do a lot of things, but just from your standpoint, do you are you looking into sending a team? Do you have a team that of mental health experts that you bring in to be able to address this issue on a national level, on a local level? How is your organization, especially in the era of mental health, approaching that area of mental health, specifically in these countries you are working in?
Well, particularly for Liberia, I am just in the formative stages of lining up some mental health professionals. All right, the Lord has blessed our community. We have some gifted mental health professionals across the United States. All right, so I have had conversations with at least three of them, and I've asked them whether we can pull together our mental health practitioners from Liberia so that they can be able to do some mission trips or come up with some programs that will be able to help Liberia. And I think they are inclined to do so. All right, so it is just in the formative stages. All right, so I don't want to make any promises up there, but
Yeah.
in the formative stages, yeah.
I think that is so critical because again, because the needs are so vast, and let's get back to looking at you know partnerships. you know From your vantage point, I know again your ministry is doing a lot of the heavy weight, the heavy lifting. How do you see partnership, the significance of partnership in doing some of these projects to address these needs affecting Africa, rather than you alone carrying all the weight? How much emphasis you want to put on building partnerships, to be able to carry an effective work of serving these disadvantaged people pretty much in Africa.
Yes, partnership is the language that all of us should be using to accomplish anything related to the kingdom or even civil society. Partnership, collaboration. All right. It is so important. All right. So, for example, the Ebenezer Community Church that you know, that church would be non-existent if it was not because of partnership. All right. We had to have partnership with different groups, entities, Christian bodies to come together to make this vision a reality. All right. And so it's very crucial. In fact, when we go to Africa to plant churches, we tell the church planters that we are in partnership. We want them to bring something to the table, and we bring something to the table. It's a partnership. We don't want that patronage where they expect us to just patronize everything, and they're just on the receiving end. No, no, no. So to answer your question, partnership is going to be very critical, and that's why I'm trying to reach out to the mental health professionals, because I'm not a mental health professional. All right, I am a pastor. My doctorate is not in mental health. My doctorate is in preaching and stewardship, but I can work and collaborate and partner with the mental health professionals to be able to bring that need or to address that need, maybe in Liberia or any of the other countries that we may have. Even this broadcast that we are having right now is partnership. You got a vision to educate people, and you are bringing in people who have experience to help facilitate the discussion. This is partnership, this is collaboration, and that's the language for the future.
Thank you so much for saying that, because oftentimes we forget that we cannot do it alone. We forget that we need the expertise of others. We need, you mentioned, the partnership, the collaboration of others to have a success in everything we do. So thank you for bringing that. You know, the vision of AfriH. Again, we are Africans for Restoration of Ethics in Government. Our vision is to help, to come alongside African government, African leaders, to help them do the right thing in different areas of expertise. We want to create awareness in the various areas of governance. What we see Africa have is struggling, and creating this awareness, and and just drawing them, steering them to the area where they can say, what, I must come alongside too, and help to address these needs, do the right thing. In your experience, and traveling to these nations, all over Africa, with your organization and your ministry, how do you find the collaboration between what you're doing and the local government? How is that relationship, going on?
Well, I don't have any direct collaboration with the government, but I've had the opportunity to, I want to say, receive the blessing of the government. So, for example, um, last year I was in Liberia, and I was privileged to have a visit with the president. And I asked the president of Liberia, how can we pray for you, or what, you know, if there was a prayer need that you had, what would that be? And basically, he said, Pastor, I want you to pray that Liberians will love their country. And then he says, the other need I want to bring to your attention is, I want Liberians to pay attention to the next generation. The president was very serious about that. He says, I want Liberians to pay attention to the next generation. Now, why collaboration is the language to the future, the next generation is the future. not just nationally, but even church. Church. The future of the church is the next generation. The future of the nation is the next generation. And so essentially, I heard him saying, I want you all to pay attention to the next generation. So I saw that as the president giving me his blessing to do what we're trying to do as a church to educate our young people. All right. Um, so maybe sometime in the future, I may have the privilege of doing something in collaboration with the government. But for now, I want to do precisely what God has laid on my heart to do with our congregation, and and of course, I'm also involved in something else that our is not part of our congregation, but as a Liberian, I feel that is necessary, and that is real estate. Real estate. So I'm a consultant with a real estate company uh, to build a smart city. All right, in Bentol, and that is the first we are doing. And then as the country opens up to other places, we'll build smart cities. And right now, as we speak, there is construction going on in the first smart city in Bentol. The first units are being built. So in as much as it's not a government enterprise, but it's also going to bring jobs. Like this one will bring about 850 jobs to Liberians, and it's going to help bring development to the country. And all we need is just the blessing of the authority and say, yes, you all get our blessing, do what you can do to help our country. So, yes, no direct collaboration, but at least we are doing something that I believe the country will benefit from.
If you were to advise, African leaders concerning these social issues, what again for your organization, education, healthcare, things like that, and you mentioned smart city, unemployment, addressing these needs. How to let them realize that this is not just an NGO, concern. This is not just a non-governmental organization issue or a non-profit organization issue or a church issue, but this is a civil issue that involves the government. You know what I mean? How can you encourage or challenge the government to, yes, I'm glad to give the blessing, but it will help a little bit more, if they do more too. You know what I mean? If they give some, some grants, you know what I mean, some lands,
Yeah,
some other tangible resources. So, what advice would you give them, that to look beyond, just, oh, that's a church doing that project, let's just get our blessing. But to get involved, to participate, to put resources there as well, because it's it's the citizens. I mean, it's these are the citizens of that nation,
yes,
and
yes,
and the government was designed to take care of her citizens. So thank you for what your organization is doing. But how can you? What advice will you give African leaders, African government concerning get rolling up their sleeves and getting involved in these projects like you?
yes. I think the first our advice is for them to do a need assessment analysis. All right, do do all of these African countries, they are gifted, they have gifted leaders, they have people who are trained in different disciplines, and they do have people who can go and do assessment. All right, you know, uh, right now I'm at the church in Brooklyn Park. Years ago, a guy came to meet with me, and he was just asking me questions. You work in Brooklyn Park? Yes. I pastor in Brooklyn Park, and he was just asking questions. What he was doing, he was assessing the needs of Brooklyn Park, and then they realized that they needed to bring a community medical center or clinic, a place where people can come from all parts of the city to get medical attention or something like that. And that particular need assessment was being done for years up the road. And then all of a sudden, one day I'm driving on Brooklyn Boulevard and I see a big center has been built there that people are going to have their needs met. So the government can start off by getting the people who are specialists in assessing needs in the different communities. And then when those needs have been identified, then, like you said, the government should be able to direct some of the resources to address those needs. All right. Let some of the resources be allocated to specifically address those needs. So, my strong recommendation would be do need assessment analysis and then allocate some of the resources to address those needs. In the long run, they're definitely going to pay off.
And it boils down to what you mentioned earlier about partnership. In other words, government doesn't have to do it alone. Organization like yours, is there. You have the team of experts, you have the team of professionals, and it's just simply saying to the government, look, we have done the needs assessment for you. We have helped you in this area. We have identified these needs. Bring the resources to us. We got a team to implement these the objective here. And I think just having that public private partnership between government and nonprofit organizations or government and NGOs is so significant. It's so significant because just talking with you, you've already, you already addressed, you already done your needs assessment concerning education, healthcare, and all those things. You already done it. So you know what the people needs are. And I just think it's about, and as you rightly said, government saying, what, they've already done the work. They need us to come alongside them. What are the areas we got the resources. Let's get in the resources. Let them do it, and then let them report back to us. Let us see result. I think forging that partnership is so critical between government and nonprofit organizations, or government and churches, government and NGOs is so significant to address these needs that we are seeing in Africa, because it breaks our heart. It breaks our heart, just knowing that our people, just basic things, like running water. You talk about preventable diseases, just impacting people, and high mortality rate, all these things, and the resources are there, is there,
Mhm.
but I just think it's about forging that partnership.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, our time is fast spent, Dr. Tapla. We want to do this also. I want to just is there something else in your heart that you want to just share with the audience concerning social challenges that's in Africa, and how you know others who are watching can get involved in addressing the needs of Africa? Because I'm telling you, for me, coming to the West and visiting Europe, and living here in America, it just, I'm amazed. I'm amazed what people can do. I'm amazed. And just look at the quality of education, and just young people dreaming big, and just fulfilling their dreams and changing the landscape of the nation that they are living in. Private citizens doing that, and looking at Africa lagging, it breaks my heart. So what can you say to people watching, that will listen to this podcast, and how can you inspire someone to get involved, in helping Africa change?
Well, I want to start with pastors. Sometimes, and pastors here in the States, African pastors here in the States, sometimes there's a tendency to want to conclude that we don't have enough resources for ourselves. Why would we go to Africa to go and do mission projects? All right. And so as a result of that, some pastors or some churches just close the doors with regards to international missions. Well, what I have learned from experience is when you bring the needs before the church members, it is God who touches their hearts to give. If you don't bring the needs before them, they will not know that that need exists for God to touch their hearts to give. All right. I give you an example. Uh, when we went to Boer, a member of our church blessed us with a little over an acre of land. And she said, Pastor Sabla, whatever the church can do here for this city would be nice. We worship in the open. We just had a little platform built there, but we worship in the open. And so we came back and we shared with the church that look at our people worshiping out there in the open. And so we want to raise some money to build a structure for the young church. And then people started giving. All right. One lady in particular gave $4,000. Now, why did this woman give $4,000 to build a structure in Bo? Because the need was brought before her and God touched her heart. So it could be that the church is just supporting one student. It could be that the church is just supporting two students. It could be that the church is helping with the rent of a single mother who cannot afford. So I just want to encourage our African pastors that you can do something in Africa while you still do ministry here in the United States. You can do something in Africa to impact Africa. And then for the rest of us, um, there is something God has placed in each of us called compassion. And let us exercise our compassion and reach out to our African continent. The needs are enormous. All right. It can be any country that the Lord places upon your heart, but you can do something. And I'm telling you, it's going to go a long, long way. That's what I will say for now.
Oh, well said. We could have a dialogue all night, sir. We could talk so much about concerning these things, but obviously our time is fast spent. Dr. Tapla, I really want to let you know I appreciate you so much, not just as a fellow, minister, but just your heart for the community here in Minnesota. Which we see, we are on the ground. We see what your ministry is doing here, and then your heart for Africa. And I'm specifically touched that you are not just only ministering to your country, Liberia, but you are in Kenya, Uganda, and other African nations. As the door opens, you go there, and you are making an impact, one community at a time, one person at a time. And it just is a success story that we hope that people that will listen to this podcast will really glean from, and try to duplicate. And I'm glad you, as a fellow minister, you spoke to pastors. Our community, you know um we are very spiritual people, so we gravitate towards the church in the diaspora. We all have a little church home, but just speaking these, you don't forget home, and the little you can do to help, even if you cannot go, partner with organization like Ebenezer that's going, give the resources, financial resources, be a blessing, to them, that they'll be able to make use of those resources to help the continent. At AfriH, we are a nonprofit organization, so we also want to just encourage people to, just we this is pretty much, we are just starting, our podcast, but our vision is so great, to continue to create awareness and have professionals come on that be able to share the story and the expertise, address these needs in Africa too. And we also want to just say to our audience there, again, we are a 501c3 organization, so you can donate to us, cash gifts and things like that. And on the screen is our Cash App and our Zelle information that you can do. We have a dream as well. Dr. Tapla talked about the next generation. Part of our vision is to create what we call local chapters of AfriH all over Africa, in different countries, where we have young students, to have a local chapter of AfriH that will be young people that will come together and be discussing among themselves about ethical issues, how to do things right. And our dream is to have that all over the continent, and we believe it will take little steps will get there. But whatever, heart, your heart is touched, you can be a blessing to AfriH to help us. We also envision having what we call international, conference on ethics, somewhere in Africa, on an annual basis, that would bring African leaders, and speakers that would talk about ethical issues that impacts the continent. So our dream is big, and we just want to ask you to partner with us. If your heart is touched, to make donations, to come alongside on this worthy project. But Dr. Tapla, thank you again, sir, for being here. We do appreciate you so much, and hopefully in the future you will come back to join us. You know, with some of these projects are going. And I want to hear a little bit more about that smart city, sir. I want to hear a little bit more about that smart city. So we will look forward in the future to get you back to just go. Maybe that could be a segment by itself. You know,
Yeah.
concerning the smart city that you are working on. You know, in Africa, and why all that entails. So, thank you. Any concluding thoughts, sir, before we let you go?
Well, I just want to express my profound thanks to you for creating this platform to be able to reach out people and to do more educational awareness. Thank you, and I definitely am inclined to uh, respond to that request for partnership. So whichever little ways we can as family or even congregation would do our best to do that, because I believe this is a worthy uh, educational opportunity for our community at home and abroad. Also, I want to mention that pastors, if you would like us to introduce you to some of the countries where we are doing missions, connect with us and we will let you know when our next mission trips will be. And we'll be glad to come to bring you along with us to these countries to introduce you there and see how the Lord might touch your heart to begin to do some mission work in these countries. Thank you.
You know, I must say to you, I apologize. I didn't get that information for you to put on a banner so we can put it on a screen. You know, but just verbally, I mean, how they can contact you? I mean, the website is there. You know, you can just share that with our audience.
Or EbenezeerCommunityChurch.org or Francis Tabla. Just look for me on, just Google, search me, you will find me somewhere. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, friends. Thanks again for being with us. We look forward again. We meet every other Thursday. So I do the segment, and my wife Visha does the segment because we want to tap into the women as well. So Visha handles that. So next 2 Thursdays, she will be having a lady speaker, someone she will interview, and then following that, the next one we'll bring another brother, and we'll just work like that. So thank you all for being here. God bless you, Dr. Tapla. Have a blessed evening, sir, and I will look forward for another time to be together. Good night, everybody. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Bye
sir.
bye.